9:30 over here, Anna. So we all right to get started?
Yeah, we can start. No problem.
A really warm welcome to everybody that's joining us. I can see that there's lots of people joining as we speak. I just wanted to welcome you all as the moderator for this session. You're tuning into the webinar series that we've had as a collaboration across local chapters for the last few weeks while we've been going through various phases of lockdown around the world. For this series, the topic is quite interesting. It's immersive careers post the pandemic. And we've got some amazing speakers speaking from human resource perspectives, from career and job search perspectives, as well as entrepreneurship and freelance and the gig economy. So I hope that you're all ready to be learning and also asking questions and hearing about what the situation is around the world. As an introduction to these webinar series, it's been led as a collaboration from local chapters. So JCI Sri Lanka and Anas have been quite key in organising that. And the outcome of these webinars is really to discuss what are the shared challenges that we've had while the world has had this pandemic. And really just to touch on the various industries and businesses from an international perspective and utilise the global network that JCI has globally, and how we as active citizens within JCI can collaborate on solutions and opportunities. And I know that we've drawn some audiences who are non-JCI members as well. So it's really a global collaboration that's been quite exciting. So I just wanted to do some housekeeping before we get started. If you are tuned into the webinar and you're not one of the speakers or you're not asking a question, really appreciate if you could keep yourself muted. And having said that, it would be really great if you do introduce yourselves on the chat function, do ask questions, keep engaging, and that would be really awesome. Do take the question and answer time with these speakers. I've had a chat with them previously and they've got a lot of knowledge to share, so make use of that. And then we'll also be sharing some of the outcome of opportunities and challenges as a document at our final webinar, the 10th webinar that we'll have in a couple of weeks. So without further ado, I'm going to hand over to share the JCI Creed. Before I do say so, I just want to do a little quick introduction. I always forget this piece to myself. I'm tuning in from Auckland, New Zealand. I was the 2018 last national president for JCI New Zealand. I'm also just helping out as a member of JCI Auckland through moderating this panel. So I'll hand over to Shihan from JCI DMJ chapter Sri Lanka to read out the JCI Creed.
Thank you, Mary. We believe that faith in God gives meaning and purpose to human life, that the brotherhood of man transcends the sovereignty of nation. Economic justice can best be won by free men through free enterprise. Government should be of laws rather than of men. The earth's great treasure lies in human personality, and that service to humanity is the best work of life. Thank you.
Thank you, Shihan. Now we'll also keep it with Shihan to introduce our first speaker, who is from Sri Lanka, Mr. Eomal Munasinha. Over to you, Shihan, for the introduction.
Yeah, thank you. Eomal currently follows his passion for learning and development as head of talent development at National Bank PLC Sri Lanka. He's previously held the CHRO position in organizations across multiple industries. Eomal is an HR professional and L&D specialist, a certified trainer and a certified transformative coach with over 20+ years work experience. He was rated as one of the top 100 most influential global HR professionals in 2020. Multiple-time HR Leadership Award winner and winner of the first ever National Young HR Minds about 2008. So I'll hand over this to Mr. Eomal. Please wait.
Thanks, Shehan. And good day to everyone. And thank you very much to JCI for having me at this global event. It's definitely a privilege to be part of it. In leadership training, when we were doing sessions, we used to tell some of the leaders, in the morning, especially in bank branches, get together, get into a huddle, do a sort of a haka or something of sorts to really pump up people. When we went into lockdown and when everybody was home and everyone was connecting remotely, one of the questions that they asked was, okay, now how do we do the haka or the energizer? I'm going to share with you one way that you can actually do this, but I need your help for this. So I'd like to invite everyone just to switch on their cameras just for 1 minute, against housekeeping rules though. Switch on your cameras if you can. And if you're in a space where there isn't that much of background sound, just switch on your mic as well. And I'd like you to follow what I'm doing, all right? Bring your hands up, keep it close to you. Snap your fingers twice and clap once. Right, so we do this 4 times, right? Snap, snap, clap, snap, snap, clap, snap, snap, clap, snap, snap, clap. Right. And whilst you do that, I want you to say these words. We will rock you. Now, if you're a fan of Queen, or if you watch Bohemian Rhapsody, you know what I'm talking about. So just sing it as loud as you can whilst we do this, right? On 3. 1, 2, 3. We will
rock you.
One more time. We
will rock you.
And that's how the haka is done. Well done, guys. Thank you. Right. You can now mute yourself again and go off camera. Thank you very much. Right. So we've been in uncharted territories. This is new to all of us. But if we can always find a way to do different things, and this is one example of it. So today, I'd like to share with you some examples as well as some thoughts on the post-pandemic. And I'd like to do that following a little model, which I call the 3 R's, the 3 phases of in the future of work: react, respond, and revive. I had the learning and development function for a bank. And when the lockdown happened in Sri Lanka, we had this for 2 months. Everybody was at home. Banking was an essential services. So the branches were open, but a lot of the back office staff were working from home. We used to have 64% of our training done in classroom. We had our online learning platform as well, but we needed to figure out how we were going to do learning. We had virtual sessions. Yes, Zoom, MS Team were used for sessions, but we wanted to do more. I'd like to share with you one little example of one of the things we created. And this is a very amateur production. First time we've done this. Just have a look. In this particular video, there may be a sound lag if by chance you're logging in from a mobile phone. So I'll share the link with you at the end of the session anyway, so that you can go back and have a look at the full video as well as the second one. Right, so let's have a look. Life has changed over the last few weeks so much that we are calling this the new normal. So what is this new normal?
Hi Gayan, can you create this table for me on Excel and attach it to my email?
And now,
Ane Hamine, can you help me create a formula on Excel?
Excel? Formula? Can't you hear the child crying? Go and excel at making some formula and feeding the child.
Gayan, can you call IT and tell them to fix my PC? It's not working.
And now,
thank you Saman for coming and fixing my computer. I didn't know what was wrong.
It was an ID10T error, uncle. Fixed it.
Saman, did you fix Uncle Ranjit's computer?
It was an ID10T error.
A what?
ID10T as in write it together and you get IDIOT. Idiot! Uncle had not plugged in the computer. When you are working from home, are you facing ID10T errors? What do we need to do to stay relevant? There are many courses, quizzes, and games on our company e-learning platform that will help you learn, improve, and grow.
And so many apps and websites that offer free courses. I did a course on Coursera. My boss, who could hardly attach a file on his own or even manage WhatsApp, is now setting up meetings on MS Teams.
And my boss is creating movies about it.
What's your story? Avoid ID10T errors. Learn, improve, and grow. Stay safe, stay relevant. All right, so that was an example of a little clip that we did to pass the message down to the people, because we didn't have access to our, or rather the people didn't have access to some of the platforms. They didn't have access to the office computers. We had to use the WhatsApp groups that were created for BCP to send these messages down to the last person. And three things come out of this little video. One is that this video was created using just a mobile phone. No studio, no computer. It was just done on a mobile phone. If there's a will, you will definitely find a way to get it done. Second thing is the message that this brings. We've got a lot of skills and we sometimes depend on the people at work to support us with other skills. But in this time and going forward, we may not have that support. So we need to be multi-skilled and be able to manage everything that we need. And the third is the learning agility. In this time of crisis and going beyond, the world is changing. There's a lot of new things coming in and we need to be able to learn fast and learn, improve, and grow. If we learn, we stay relevant. If we don't, we get left behind. So with that, I'd like to move to the next one, which is the respond phase. What is the impact that COVID-19 has had on consumers, economy, employer, and employees? I won't touch on consumer and economy, but I'd like to just touch on the employer and the kind of impact it has on the skills required by the employees. Now, from a strategic perspective, diversification has happened. We've looked at unrelated diversification as a very positive thing. Structures have become lean, not because of profitability concerns, but mainly because of cash flow concerns during this time. And we've also had agile practices been discussed by a lot of corporates. We used to make a one-year annual plan and then execute it month on month. But now we find ourselves having a 6 months goal or a 1 year goal, but planning it maybe 1 month or 2 months at a time. And then we review it and we course correct wherever required. So things have become very agile, and that's something we need to also do. Digital adoption, in terms of people skills rather, digital adoption has just skyrocketed. In Hatton National Bank, we have our digital wallet, and in just April, the usage grew by, get this, 500%. That's the consumer adoption in terms of digital. Staff has been somewhat similar. People who couldn't even manage WhatsApp is suddenly now joining webinars and conducting webinars. Innovation has accelerated. If I take two examples from Sri Lanka, we had a electric supercar manufacturing company that has developed a ventilator, a scalable low-cost ventilator within just 10 days. And believe it or not, they've done it at just 2.5% of the original market price. 2.5%. Wow. That's the kind of innovations that's coming out. We've also had a stationery company in Sri Lanka that developed a robot which can go and check temperature of COVID patients, take their food, take their medicine to them, monitor and even communicate with them. And this is just a stationary company, but this is the kind of innovation that they're doing. So if we need to stay ahead in our careers, we need to also be open to innovate beyond what we were usually doing. From a people practice perspective, remote working is something that we've anyway had. A lot of companies did practice this, but now companies who are not open to it also have started looking at it. And two things come out of this. One is that the blurring lines between life and work. So we've had in certain cases build certain clauses into the policy to say beyond this time, let's respect the person's individual time. But the key one is the trust and controls. Supervisors don't know what the people are doing at home, and that has been a concern. So some companies brought in controls to like timesheets, etc., to try and monitor and find out what each person was doing. But this had a bit of a negative impact on motivation. People felt, okay, you're bringing so many controls in because you don't trust me. So then companies had to move into output-driven KPIs. It doesn't matter what you do at home, at what time you do it, just make sure the output is there. And when we move into output-driven mechanisms, what comes out of this is, hey, if you're monitoring output, why not just pay for output only? And that's where companies are now starting to open up to consider the gig economy, even if they didn't previously. So what does this mean for our people? 5 key skills that are critical in our careers as we move forward post-COVID. Digital literacy, which we discussed, agility, to be able to move, learn new things, innovation at a different level, empathy, which is that COVID has affected each person very differently, and we need to be able to understand and customize the way we treat people. And communication, well, that has been another thing. Now, we've even had to teach people to figure out whether a person is smiling or not, because now they come like this. Face is covered. Are they smiling or frowning? Facial reactions just by looking at the top part of it. So if one were to ask, how do we ease back post-COVID? The answer is get a pair. Don't misunderstand me. I'm referring to plan to be agile, adapt to changing circumstances, innovate fast, and rise to the challenge. The 4 key skills: agile thinking, change leadership, design thinking, and a winning mindset. Let's stay relevant. Let's rise together. And if you ever feel down, just remember that song. We will rock you. Over to you, Noreen.
Thank you so much. Eomal, that was really well put, and I can see that there's quite a lot to take away there, and some of the comments that we're seeing coming in is very relevant. We'll move on. So the way that we're going with the webinar tonight, we're having a few speakers first, and then we'll do a bit of a roundtable Q&A. So if you have any questions for Eomal, put them in the chat and we'll come back to you. But thank you so much for kicking us off. Well, it's so much energy as well, Eomal. I'll hand over now to Peter from JCI Eastern Australia, who will be introducing our second speaker, Ashleigh. Over to you, Peter.
Thanks, Noreen. Hi, everyone. From JCI Eastern, based in Melbourne, Australia. I'd like to introduce Ashleigh McFayden to our webinar series tonight. Ashleigh is a good friend of mine and a recruiter consultant who is working for a Brisbane-based agency called Pure Source Recruitment. This agency specialises in temporary, contract and permanent staff placements for office admin, business support, management and executive positions across a number of industries too. So tonight, Ashleigh is joining us to enlighten us on the change in talent search and talent requirements for both employee and employer. So Ashleigh, welcome.
Thank you for that introduction, and good evening, everybody. Quite a comprehensive introduction, so I will jump right into it. Being a recruiter based in Brisbane, what that has meant is, I guess in Queensland, we've been pretty fortunate in how we have dealt with this pandemic. So some of my clients are in the very early stages of transitioning back to the office, and there are others that have been pretty clear in saying that they're not likely to return in a full-time capacity until perhaps 2021. So tonight I wanted to speak about some of the challenges and opportunities that exist from a recruitment perspective, and the way that that can impact as both an employer and an employee. So firstly, the impact on the hiring process. With so many candidates in the market at the moment, we're seeing a really high volume of applications. So to give that some context, the week before last, I advertised for a customer service officer position for one of my clients. And in the space of 5 days, I received 570 applications. What we're having to be really clear with clients on is just because there is an increase in the quantity of applications doesn't necessarily mean that there's an increase in the quality of applications that we're receiving. But what that does mean is that it is going to take a little bit more time. So from an employer and an employee perspective, being really upfront that the recruitment process may be a little bit longer than normal at the moment, just to give everybody the courtesy of actually reviewing applications. It means more communication from hiring managers and from myself as a recruitment consultant, and being more accessible to candidates in the market if they've got any questions about the role or about the organisation and about the long-term opportunities that exist. It means that we're having to be more careful around improving the screening that we do, because there are candidates that are going to be in the market at the moment because their industries have relatively shut down, or the sorts of roles that they're in have shut down, which means that they may just be looking for something in an interim capacity as opposed to long-term career opportunities in this field. So being really detailed when we're talking to people about their long-term motivations and what they're looking for in building their career. Another challenge that's presented itself for us is conducting interviews virtually. I'm sure many of you are very familiar now with some of the challenges coming with Zoom technology or Teams or FaceTime or whatever platform you're using, which means first and foremost, we're not as easily able to interpret body language and those little micro cues that you would see in a face-to-face setting. It means that with lagging technology at times, you may find yourself pausing for longer than normal and then speaking over the top of one another. And so being understanding of that, it means challenges in terms of panel interviews and how that might come across when you're sitting there in a panel interview with 3 people in a Zoom sort of setting. And so really being mindful of the employee or potential employee experience that comes with that, and as an employee thinking about how do I practice for this sort of environment and really ready myself for I guess the technology. Following on from what Eomal said before, there's going to be a change in terms of the qualities that we're now looking for in candidates in the short term or whilst we're going through this pandemic. So from a support capacity, we're going to need people that are capable of working autonomously and are pretty self-motivated, working in an environment where you don't have a physical team around you. We'll be looking for people that have strong relationship building skills, in spite of the fact that you are not physically in the office with somebody. How are you going to go about building relationships with stakeholders across the business in this remote environment? Somebody that is technologically astute, because what we're anticipating is people being trained and onboarded in a remote environment. So somebody that can pick up systems and processes fairly quickly whilst perhaps in a sharing screen capacity, which is going to present a real challenge. And obviously that adaptability and a willingness to perhaps be onboarded in a remote capacity, but transition back to a physical work environment at some point in the near future. From a leadership perspective, obviously in the last few years, there's been increased focus on emotional intelligence as a hiring competency. At the moment, more relevant than ever, because people are needing to encourage, motivate, empower their teams in a remote capacity, which adds another layer of complexity. Empathy is really important, and especially when you're supporting your teams and their mental health through these challenging times. And one of the biggest challenges that I've seen come up for my clients has been the challenge around performance management and how managers are going to handle that, or potentially finishing somebody up in a remote environment. And so being really emotionally intelligent when it comes to taking on that. With onboarding and induction, once you have selected the successful employee, I've seen a couple of clients do that successfully in the last couple of months. And as you can imagine, that's really needed an increased level of communication, not just when they've started in the role, but in the lead up to starting in the position. Some strategies that I've seen really helpful is pairing up employees with a buddy within the organisation. So whether that's in a comparative role within the team or in another team entirely, just to help them acclimatise to the business. It also means that as a business, you'll have to be pretty strategic in who you select to train somebody. Are they capable of training somebody in a remote environment and getting them up to speed with technology platforms, with business processes, or do you have self-directed learning platforms available for new employees to get them started? So being really clear and well planned in induction processes and being upfront about what that looks like will be a real selling factor for potential employees and wanting to join an organisation. Another potential challenge that we're anticipating is that there's going to be a lot of candidate hesitancy to move at the moment. So candidates with good job prospects, top quality candidates that have a lot of skills and experience to offer are now becoming more risk averse because of the unprecedented combination of economic and health concerns. With that does come some real opportunities though, and it's something that organisations need to be really mindful of now, and that is how you brand yourself through this and the employee value proposition. So top quality candidates over the next 3, 6, 9, 12 months are going to be drawn to organisations who care about the total well-being of staff, so their physical, mental and financial well-being. So over the next year, they will be drawn to organisations that did their best to retain employees, that looked after their health and safety, that were able to adapt the way that they work, adopt new technology, that were quick to introduce flexible work arrangements. They'll look at the leadership that came with that and the level of communication coming from senior leaders in organisations. And they'll really want to look at what employers have learnt from this, what lessons have they taken from it and adopted as a company. So now is a really unique time to be focusing on the messaging that as organisations they're putting out to potential employees of the future, so that then to provide an added level of comfort about the organisation that they're potentially moving to. One of the other opportunities that we would see at the moment, and a trend that we're sort of anticipating in the market, is that the current level of uncertainty and low confidence in the economy is likely to drive business towards flexible labour solutions, so temporary staffing solutions. Businesses that draw on temporary workers during the economic downturn and recovery are likely to achieve greater productivity and accelerate faster out of an economic downturn. So what we're anticipating from talking to clients is that whilst they may not be in a position to hire in a permanent full-time capacity in the next 3 to 6 months, they are certainly more ready and willing to bring people on in a short-term temporary capacity to help business return to normal function, get up to speed. And so there's some real opportunities in the market for people that have lost their jobs. There's also some opportunities from an employer perspective to consider people for roles from a non-traditional background. So whilst you might have been pretty niche in the past about, oh, somebody needs to have this certain experience and this level of skill, it's a time to really be creative about the opportunities that you give to people and the different experience that that can bring to your business in a short-term capacity, because of the number of people that are active in the market at the moment. My hope is that even though we've been forced to adopt all of this new technology in the way we work and the way we hire, that we don't become complacent as we start to return to the office and just continue to hire people in this automated electronic way because it's easier to do so. We have to really remember that people are at the center of this, and it's about the candidate experience, and that really sets the tone for their experience as an employee, and we have to be mindful of that. And finally, I just wanted to touch on things from a candidate job search perspective. With that role that I've recruited in the last 2 weeks, like I said, a really high number of candidate applications that I received. Of that number, only 5 made contact with me personally over the phone to introduce themselves, to make an effort to set their application apart. A small number emailed me directly. There were a handful of people that connected with me on LinkedIn, but not one person personalized a LinkedIn message to me. So I wasn't sure necessarily what it was about at all. So I think moving forward, and the messaging that I'm really trying to give candidates or just people out there at the moment is that there is so much opportunity to set yourself apart from other people in the market, and whether that's doing your research and connecting with somebody on LinkedIn with a personalized message, tracking down their contact details if they're not provided, sending an email, or making a phone call. It doesn't need to be that comprehensive. It's really small things that will set yourself apart from others in the market at the moment and show how proactive you are, how much you want the opportunity. And those are the candidates that I am dedicated to working with moving forward, because that's really what's made a difference in all of this. So yeah, that is, those are the main challenges and opportunities that I really see. So thanks for that.
Great, thank you so much, Ashleigh. That's a great overview from an employer perspective, but also employees and candidate perspective as well. It's so interesting what you say, you know, that customization and really making that small effort into the small action. So thank you, that's really valuable. I think we've had a few questions already around what candidates can do. So thank you for that tangible outcome action there. I will now hand over for our third speaker, Saleh, and he will be introduced. I'm not sure if Rana is here to introduce him. If they are, I will pass on to Rana.
I don't think Rana is
ready within the
Thank you. Yeah, Karishma will do your introduction then, Saleh. Thank you.
Yes. So hello, everyone. And I'm glad to introduce our Vice President, Saleh Al-Hanash, who is also an international trainer, a TEDx Muscat Oman live speaker in 2019. And he is a proud recipient of the 2017 Jordanian Bag Fellowship and Award, and has been awarded as a social entrepreneur. He's also serving as JCI Vice President assigned to Africa and Middle East. And today he will be sharing more about the entrepreneurial challenges during this pandemic and how it's related to our topic. So the floor is over to you, Vice President Saleh. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. It's a pleasure for me to be with you today with this pool of leaders and speakers from all over the world. Today, I will try to be brief, and I know that the topic is very important for everyone. I will go direct to my presentation. to make it more engaging, if you allow me, and make it very fast. So as you mentioned in the introduction, I'm originally a pharmacist, and then I jumped to another business because of my passion. So it's my role of area of going to my passion and entrepreneurship. As you mentioned, I am currently the 2020 JCI Africa Middle East Vice President assigned to 6 countries, and I've been in the entrepreneurial world since 4 years, and helping now entrepreneurs and others in overcoming the crisis and everything. So my speech today will focus on the challenges and the post-pandemic era, and what are the opportunities, and is the COVID-19 the trigger for the change, or it was before? So my presentation will be highlighted on 4 things about the entrepreneurship itself, the opportunities, the customer behavior, and the digital transformation. And if you have any questions, please, you are allowed to do. So first, I would like to start with the definition of the crisis. The crisis, from the perspective of the companies and the corporates and the startups, it's not the COVID-19. It's not only that, because it could be a political crisis, it could be an organizational crisis, financial crisis, technological crisis. All of this can cause a crisis for the organization. It could be at any time during the year. But the COVID-19, to talk the truth, it allows us to unleash our potentials as individuals and as corporates, because it hires the risk management that we had, and it allows us now to go out from our comfort zone. I know it's a challenging situation, and I know it is for too many people, it's not easy to do that. But to talk the truth, it, as the speakers mentioned, it allowed us to shift our life from A to B. Even my parents, they are above 60, and they are now expert in technology, because they are in different country now than us. So if we can see, there is a positive side from all what is happening. This slide is in Arabic, I'm sorry, but you can understand, I know, the slogans. If we go to the history of the biggest corporates and companies worldwide, it was already established during a crisis since 92 to 2008. IBM, Disney, FedEx, Microsoft, Airbnb, all of these companies started as a startups during the crisis, and they made the opportunity from the crisis that happens. So the question is now, what should we do as an entrepreneur? Should stay away, or to make or to turn it into an opportunity? Definitely it is to turn it an opportunity, because it's about the agility. Now, even if you have the best plan, as the speakers mentioned before, the change is always there. So you need to be agile as much as you can. Ability to learn and orientation to learning is the solution in the current situation for the entrepreneurs. To highlight more, many of you now, just maybe when we see the presentation title is about entrepreneurship, everyone will say, okay, so I need to resign and open my own business, right? I will tell you that it's not that situation. Not everyone needs to be an entrepreneur, because there is something called entrepreneurship. So now the current situation is in need for entrepreneurs and entrepreneurs. It's not only the entrepreneurs that can make the change. All the corporates or the companies now, big industries, needs the entrepreneurs, whom are entrepreneurs, but inside the organization. So you can be an entrepreneur, everyone can be an entrepreneur, a change maker, and innovative person inside your company. And as this presentation shows you that entrepreneurs have more advantages than entrepreneurs. It's less risky, more access to resources, and there is a job security for them. In the entrepreneurial world, maybe it is too risky, it's very hard to find resources sometimes, but the opportunities are there also. So the situation now is in need for both. So not only to focus on the entrepreneurship. I will not go to the intrapreneur, because my colleagues and the speakers mentioned about the intrapreneurship part, but I wanted to highlight about this. I will go for the entrepreneurship and the situation. If you are an entrepreneur or entrepreneur, Now the situation can be turned into opportunity. Why? Because it's all about customer. If we think about the need and the want, the old scenario in the sales and marketing, people need thing, they go buy it. Want thing, they go buy it. But their priority will be their needs. And that's what happens in the COVID-19. When people got locked down, when people got no access for the food, for security, for medicines, for maybe applications, so they did research about having these things, and they buy it, or maybe they resource it or outsource it. I don't know what happens in each country. It's different, but the situation is people goes for their needs. So think about, first of all, about the problem. Start from the problem. What is the problem? And be focused on one problem. Like we mentioned in the entrepreneurship ecosystem, don't think about the whole problem. You can't solve the COVID-19 problem. Why? Because it's big. We need a vaccine for the COVID-19 to solve it. But there is an emerging or cascading problems aligned with the big problem, which is the transportation, the lockdown, meetings with people, again, access to food, access to security. So if you take one portion of the problem and solve it, this will make more cascading solutions and help us to solve the worldwide crisis. Okay, so first of all, think about the problem, get an innovative solution, and I will mention about what do we mean by innovative solution. Ask your target audience, contact them. It's the opportunity now to reach your target audience, your customers, because everybody is now locked down maybe, or in their homes. They are more free to be accessed through the social media, through the technological applications or devices. So it's very easy for you now to get more insights from them and to develop your application. And don't forget that if you are talking about the entrepreneurship, don't forget about the idea should bring money. There should be a revenue, okay? Because you want it to be sustainable. Charitable work is good, I know that, but what we need in COVID-19 is not only the charitable work, because it will not be sustainable. There will be no development for the organization that you are living or for your startup. So always think about the revenue stream and the business model that you are doing. The big question is when customers will pay for something if you are solving the problem for them. Again, their need, not their want, okay? And this again will cause the sustainability, and the idea will be scalable and will be, and it has the accessibility all over the world. Back to the innovation and the invention. During the crisis, we don't need inventions. And what do you mean by inventions? It's things that newly made, okay, and new, maybe, let's say, products and devices. What we need now is innovation. The innovation definition is having something already present and just doing small modification on it to solve the problem. So it's an innovative idea added to already existing ideas, and that's what you can do. So we don't need to be Einsteins. It's only that we need innovations, and that's what and it's the change in the process, and that's what the entrepreneurs and intrapreneurs now do. And this is all these examples, you know about it. They didn't start from scratch idea. They started from already existed ideas, but it was innovative solutions, innovative ideas that made them being like pandemic, viral everywhere. So this is an example. So there was the telephones. Now it's like solar boxes. The joysticks, now it is present in the cars. The wireless charging, now it is present, and it was from the concept of the wireless system. So this is the idea. Try to have innovative solutions. Hopefully that I'm being just highlighting on things. I can see the questions. Maybe I will answer it after I finish the part of the entrepreneurship, because I have 10 minutes, and the speakers might not allow me to take all the part. Going to some examples during the crisis, we saw that too many youth and entrepreneurs started to do their own startups and ideas, and we saw that in Italy, they made the valves that was costing like hundreds or thousands of euros, and they made it in €1 using the 3D printing. And then others started to do the 3D printables, masks and mask shades. So this is amazing solutions. Entrepreneurs always think about the problem to find solution for it and use the current resources with a lower cost that they can do much and much better. And this is an example also for in China. They use the robots to enter the coronavirus fight, to less the human contact. They use the drones to deliver medicines, to increase to do security issues, blah, blah, blah. So too many scenarios using the technology is the thing. And maybe the future will be also for the 3D printing to do printings, and now some countries started to do this. And this is one of the great entrepreneurs in Jordan made something called security. In Arabic, it's called Amman. It's like what the applications in, I guess, Germany and UK, that you can know who is infected by the COVID-19 and and where they are now, if they are quarantined or not. So this will increase the security. So ideas comes from the customers themselves, again, from the situation and how to turn the problem into solutions. So that was the insight about the entrepreneurs part. Going to the digital transformation, we know that many of us think that the digital transformation started because of the COVID-19. I can tell you it wasn't because of COVID-19. It increased the threshold, yes, but it was there before because there are too many studies about that. So this study can show you that it was published in January 2020, before the COVID-19 was pandemic in the world. It mentioned that, as you can see, the number of people that are using the internet are 4.54 billion people, and 3.8 billion people are using actively social media. And they mentioned that you will be probably using social media more than 100 days. And I guess with the quarantine, it will be like now 200 days in 2020. So that made a big question about the digital transformation. Those are some studies that you can see. And this is a study that made for in Europe and the USA. They asked more than 2,600 healthcare professional and about their insights of the pharmaceutical companies that are visiting them with a digital transformation or digital using digital channels. They were more preferable for the digital solutions than other or the traditional, let's say, sales and marketing. By the way, this study was made in 2019. So we can see that the customer behavior was already changing before the pandemic crisis. And this is about also the jobs, going to the sales representative or being specific medical representative people. This is very important that people who are doing sales, their jobs will not be disappeared. It will stay, but they will use more technological online resources. And that's what their studies is showing. So again, going to focus on the customer behavior, it was changing. And that's what we need to, as entrepreneurs or employees inside the companies, to increase our skills or the digital skills. I would like also in my 2 to 3 slides that I will end the presentation with to talk about, there is something emerging called the digital body language. The concept is now being also viral all over the world, but it is not new. It was there since 2007. So we are talking about before 13 years. This concept was there. Talking more about the digital body language and how we can be integrated with the artificial intelligence. And it's not far away from the a real or the physical body language. There is some digital part, but also it includes already the real parts. And this study was made in 2017 or 2018, sorry, yes, in one of the universities. They were incorporating the real body language into the robots and into the into all the digital solutions to be used more in the future. So we can see that the future is coming before the COVID-19. Maybe the COVID-19 made us, guys, be awake. There should be a change. So thanks God for having the COVID-19 in this part, not on the other part. And the final thing, if Ashleigh allows me, this is also how the artificial intelligence is using the digital body language in the recruitment. So there is a company called HireView. They are using now a filtration system for the candidates through their voice, tone of voice, facial expressions. What are the words that they are saying to filter the applicants and use it and make it more easy for them to recruit people. So the change is there. And this article was published in 2017. So the concept is not new. So again, the solution for the entrepreneurs and entrepreneurs is to grab the opportunities, and then it's now time for the digital skills to be more increased. Thank you so much. I hope that I didn't take too much time and it was insightful. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Saleh. Thank you for highlighting so many of the opportunities. I think it's really important while we acknowledge, the disadvantages, as well as, the lot of kind of people impacted by the pandemic. It's really important to kind of look at the opportunities and look to the future. So thank you for sharing that. Those are really a few concepts there that I hadn't thought of, particularly things like the digital body language and artificial intelligence, which is really interesting. Thank you for that. So we've come to our Q&A roundtable for our first three speakers here. We've gone from Eomal, who shared some really interesting opportunities that come out of the challenges in learning and development that we have while digitally working, and also the skills required for the future of work. We've had Ashleigh, who's covered off the employer's perspective about what it is actually like to work during this time, and also the challenges that employers face and what candidates can look for within the job market. And Saleh obviously has covered some great tips for entrepreneurs and opportunities. So we do have a few questions that have come through for you. The first one here is to Saleh. I think was quite an interesting one when you were talking about understanding customer behavior and finding a revenue stream. I'm not sure I'm saying this correctly, sorry if I'm pronouncing it wrong, but Mcfadden is saying, how can we convince and attract investors to contribute in initiating startups while they're already risking a lot due to the financial crisis that's occurring? So I guess that's how do we get investors for new startups at the moment?
Okay, I can see that Mufak asked that question. So this question is very important because everyone is asking, how can I reach the financial support or of the fund and start any idea? Again, focus on the problem that the people want, not that on your mind. Because Jordan's problem is not like Australia, is not like New Zealand, is not like UK. So focus on what your people need. It's all about them, not you. Even if your idea is amazing, but focus about what they need. Approach them more. I prefer always to, this is my methodology. There is a lot of let's say books about or methodologies about the entrepreneurship, how to start in it. But personally, I prefer to start with a small budget from your own, do a prototype or a minimum viable product, access again the customers, ask them, you will buy it, you will subscribe in it, do you need it? If they yes, go then search for the investors. Then the investors, I'm sure they will be there, because there is a golden rule for the investor. The investor will not give you money because they are impressed or about your idea or your shape or about because they want to rescue the world. No, investors, they want to put $1,000, get it in like after 1 year, 1,500 or 2,000. That's their role. So if they can see that this is a feasible idea with a strong business model, I'm sure they will do investing for you. Hopefully that I answered the question.
Great, thank you so much for that, Salah. I've had a question here that was put through earlier by one of the registration from JCI Jordan. It's Farah who's asking about whether we should be shifting jobs, how the jobs that we are applying to, should we be considering career changes? And I think it would be quite interesting to hear from all three of you speakers, Eomal, Salah and Ashleigh. Do you think that people should be thinking about career changes? How should they be thinking about applying for jobs? Maybe Ashleigh, we'll start with you.
It's a really interesting question. And I guess what I was trying to touch on before with organizations hopefully being more willing to look outside the box in backgrounds that candidates are coming from. It wouldn't surprise me if people are doing that at the moment. I was just speaking to Peter the other day about certain roles that at the moment have been quite deeply affected by what's going on in the market, particularly in the event space and marketing and business development and those sorts of opportunities. Depending on the transferability of skills, I think now's a really great time to try and diversify your experience. And I think organizations now more than ever I think historically would have looked at, oh, they've jumped around career paths this many times in their history, and looked at that as a negative. Now I think are looking at it as more of a positive in people's willingness to learn new skills and roles, their ability to pick up new industries and environments. If there's an opportunity for you to get your foot in the door with a new role at the moment, then absolutely. I don't think there's any reason why you wouldn't.
Thank you, Ashleigh. Eomal, would you like to jump in on whether people should be looking at changing careers at the moment?
Yeah, thanks, Noreen. Well, my opinion is a little different. What I believe is when you pick your career, it's got to be something that you're really passionate about. Your passion should drive your career choice. And when you have that passion, you don't need to change your career. You just find a different way of doing it. For example, if you take trainers who we work with, they are people who came into classrooms and delivered sessions. And today we are not doing any training for the next 3 months to 6 months because of social distancing. But they've transformed themselves to either do online training or even create clips like the one I showed. So there are different ways that you do it, but you're still doing what you're passionate about. And if you follow your passion with your heart, that's what will make you happy. That's what will get you the result. So I believe stick to what you love and you'll find a way to do it.
Great. Thank you so much, Eomal. That's really interesting to have that perspective there.
Noreen, can I just follow up on that? Because that's a brilliant point, and I absolutely believe in that. I think what we're trying to say to people in the market at the moment is there's probably two distinct ways of thinking about it, which is what can I do right now, and what's my for now work opportunity, and what's my overall career opportunity. And so we're really realistic about people might have to make choices in the short term to have financial stability and income that might not necessarily be aligned to their long-term career goals just out of necessity. So I think it's really important when you're approaching organizations or writing a cover letter to maybe just be upfront about that sort of thing. And so yeah, sorry, I just wanted to clarify that a little bit.
Yeah. Sure, that's a really great way of putting it, about thinking about the now and then the future as well. Salah, would you like to add to that? And I just want to put in there, because we're running out of time, there is another question while you are answering the change as well, changing careers piece, from Nabil from JCI Mauritius. How can entrepreneurs be part of change management? And I think those two questions might go together as well.
Okay, so back to the Farah question. I second all the speakers' points because there is something called career and something called job. So if you are in a job, so definitely I'm with Ashleigh. Just go for sustain yourself for now. Don't jump nowhere, because let's be realistic, guys. We need money. You need to live. So your dad and your mom will not sponsor you forever, right? So, but use the current situation to develop your skills, as Ashleigh mentioned before. Okay, but if you are in your career, it's now to take risks. Yes, because if it is your career and it's a long-term objective, the change is risky, definitely, but you need to, if you have already the capable skills and the resources, it's now a great time to do some changes. Personally, I made the changes in my company because, as Eomal said, we were trainers always outside. We didn't focus too much on the online training and resources. Now we made a lot of changes, and you can now imagine that we are selling services of Zoom, not being even a speaker, just helping companies to do effective Zoom meetings. So maybe it's a small idea, but it's bringing more income for our company. To the second question, sorry, maybe Ashleigh will emphasize more about it, the entrepreneurship during the change management. My recommendation here is always, now companies need to lessen their costs and increase their productivity. So this is their golden rule now. So try to find innovative projects. Be implementer of innovative projects that can help your company to less their resources, their costs, with lower resources for sure, and increase their productivity and revenue stream. You will shine in the company. I can assure that you will be the CEO after maybe 4 years.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Salah. I can see there's a whole bunch of questions coming in still. We don't have too much time for this Q&A, but we will have some more time at the end. So I'll finish with a couple of questions here. I know Mufak and Peter have also asked around job seekers, and adding on, I believe, to Ashleigh, what you were saying around how they might break through the numbers. Peter's question is, how can we break through the numbers as job seekers? And also Mufak was asking earlier around, if you're a student now, how do you go about getting those internships, given companies are in this kind of crisis situation, or that mindset, I suppose?
Mm-hmm. Now is a really difficult time, I think, for undergraduate students and people coming out of undergraduate programs. I saw something really interesting on LinkedIn this week that I hadn't seen before, which was somebody that was had come up in my newsfeed and posted, this is my background. I'm willing to work 1 month for free for a different organization in exchange for a reference. Please see my profile for a video resume. And I hadn't seen anything like that. I thought the idea of volunteering her services to organizations, and people were so willing to share that post in exchange for a reference or a testimonial. And then she'd put together just a clever, short 30-second to a minute video on her profile, which you can have embedded on there. And I've got one on mine, just with a quick summary that shows a little bit about your personality, really sets you apart. I think now, with more time, is the time to be investing in LinkedIn, in putting together your profile, because organizations might be more likely to use LinkedIn Recruiter to find passive candidates than to go out to market. And so you really want to make sure that you're cultivating a profile that uses keywords on there that people will be searching for, so that are in the sorts of jobs that you're applying for. And that might be industry, it could be role, it could be competency based, making sure that you're filling out all of the sections, using the time now to ask people for recommendations and testimonials to have on your profile, and then treating yourself like the product, and that you're marketing yourself to these organizations and making contact with people in organizations that you would like to work with, so that then when they do have opportunities available, they come to you instead of going out to market. So there's a lot that you can be doing, and I'm happy to answer any and all questions later on, or you can connect with me on LinkedIn if you'd like to talk to me more about it another time.
Wonderful.
Noreen,
thank you so much for that.
Noreen, can I add one more point to that? So I agree with what Ashleigh said. Just to give an example from what we were doing as an organization, from an employee perspective, we discontinued the internship program. Not discontinued, but we froze it for 3 months, not because of the financial implications, but we felt that we couldn't give the experience to the interns that they were actually there to get. But just imagine a situation if an intern or undergrad would come to the organization with an idea and say, hey, this is your business. Here's the idea that I have. I want to help implement this in your organization. You don't even need to pay me. If the idea is great and it's feasible, organizations wouldn't even mind paying for it. So that's what the undergrads have to now come with, not just ask for a job, but show this is how I can add value to your organization. Give me the opportunity to do that.
Great, thank you so much for that, Eomal. I think we've run out of time for this round of Q&A because we have 2 other awesome speakers. But what I've heard from these 3 speakers is that being innovative. Salah has really touched on that opportunity and being innovative and proactive and reaching out and finding those problems that people want solutions for. Eomal and Ashleigh, they've both really touched on the key skills that we need, but also thinking about the now and beyond, as well as the proactivity I'm hearing really strongly from all speakers. So I'm really looking forward to hearing the other 2 speakers. The next speaker we've got is Mohammad Hijazi, and Karishma is going to introduce Mo, who's we were lucky enough to be serving as national presidents in 2018 together, and he will be speaking to us on a very relevant topic on the gig economy. So over to you, Karishma.
Hello again, everyone. So I have the pleasure to introduce the 2020 JCI Vice President Mohammad Hijazi, who is from Lebanon and also holds a dual degree in marketing communication and biology from the American University of Beirut. He is a leading communication consultant, trainer, and digital strategist, but also a pioneer in digital marketing. He was one of the earliest to educate businesses on the importance of digital in Lebanon and the Middle East. Certified from the US State Department and Google, he consulted for international organizations including the European Union, United Nations, British Council, UK embassies, World Economic Forum, and 100+ clients across different fields and countries. His expertise include creating and implementing marketing strategies, business trainings, influencer and public relations, copywriting, and project management. He will today share with us on how to brand and market yourself to employees during this new normal. So I would like to invite him to take the floor. Over to you, Vice President Mo.
Thank you very much, Karishma, for the introduction, and thank you very much for local organizations who are hosting this event. Very happy to see moderator and past president Noreen today, and thank you also very much to JCI Sri Lanka IPP Anas for all of his efforts to organize this panel. So today I'm going to be talking about some steps for a successful online job search, how to brand yourself in order to find a temporary or permanent job using online tools. So this course is usually a 2-hour course, but I've boiled down most of the important points into my presentation today. So if you want me to expand on any other points, feel free to leave them leave your question in the comments. So when we're looking for a job, we have to think of it like as if we're looking for a date. So we have to be charming, we have to be well prepared, confident. We have to know what we are looking for, and we have to be able to take some risks. The first step is to have a professional email address. And I know this might seem very basic, but I've seen this happen so many times The people are using an unprofessional email address, and that is the first alarming point for recruiters. So some examples would be to use your name at Gmail or at Outlook.com, or use your first initial and your last name at Yahoo.com, or even you can use your college or university email address if you still have access to it after you graduate. The best option and the most professional looking is to buy your own domain. So that only costs around $10 a year, but it will make you look another level of professional. Things not to do are, having your teenage email address, Pink Princess at Hotmail, or Sexy Beast or Puppy Love or Britney Spears official one. These things you don't want to apply to a job with. Another thing that is very important to do is to Google yourself. It's to know where you stand in the market. And usually this is the first thing that recruiters do, Googling and Facebooking and looking up, your social media profiles to know more about you. So if you see things that you online that you don't want to see, if it's something that you have posted, then it's a good idea to remove it. Or if someone else has posted it, you can message them or email them to remove it, because it will affect your job search. And I'd like to invite everyone watching today to do this right now. Go on your phone, go on Google and look up your name and look up different spellings of your name and see what shows up. And if nothing shows up, that's not a good sign, because your e-reputation now is very important for to get a job or to get credibility. So if you don't have anything that's about you online, then what you can do is create content so you show up. So these can be articles and blogs, and I'll talk about them in a bit. And then in order to have an effective search, use incognito or private mode, because if you're logged into your email account, it will customize the search to you and it will not show you what everyone else will be seeing. Now, the third step is to define your goals. When you're going into the job market, you just don't want to go in without any expectations. So you have to think about what type of job you want. Is it a full-time, part-time, research, freelance, or work from home? Where do you want the job to be? In your city, in your country, somewhere else, online? And which industry do you want to work in? So this is also very important. Sometimes you work in marketing, but then you don't like anything related to hospitals or medical equipment, for example. So you want to know that I don't want to work in that industry. So you have to put a list of industries that you're willing to work in. And then you also have to understand or know which level of jobs that you're qualified for. So I see a lot of people applying for CEO positions when they just have 2 years of experience. So try to be as realistic as possible. Do you want an internship, a starting level management, a managerial position, consulting position, mid-career, or top management? And then also you have to think about what company size do you want to join. This really affects the company culture and the number of people you have to deal with, the number of people you have to report to, and all of that. So think about if you want to join a startup, a multinational, family business, small business, local business, regional business, or a national business. So all of these you have to think about. And then also you have to have your CV ready. And what I found out is that CVs that stand out are more likely to be shortlisted. When I was in university, I did a small experiment. I wasn't looking for a job, but I went to a career fair hosted by my university. And usually all the big companies are there. So I had my CV, and the only thing that I did different was I printed it on colored paper. So I did pink and purple and blue and all of that, just the colored paper. And then when I went to the stands and I gave my CV out, people were I had two reactions. They were either very happy to see something that stood out, and then when I came back the next day, they had remembered that, oh, this is a person who gave in something different. And then some of them didn't like it. These were the people who are in more traditional jobs. So the outcome of that is that I got 10 calls for interviews, and I wasn't even looking for a job back then. So making your CV stand out, and as Ashleigh said, maybe a video resume or a video attached to your LinkedIn can really help you stand out. When it comes to a traditional CV, unfortunately, a lot of places still ask you for it, even if you have a LinkedIn or other forms of portfolios available. So make it stand out, use colors, photos, be creative. And especially if you have a lot of things going on in your CV, make sure that you send it in PDF format, because if you send it in Word or Photoshop or whatever program that you're using, it will get distorted if the person doesn't have the software that you're using. So using it, sending it in PDF is the best bet. And then also make sure that you customize your CV to suit your goals, but also to suit the employer that you're applying to. Step 5 is to optimize your personal social platforms. So it's similar with Google. People will look for you on Facebook, especially if you're in the late stages of shortlisting. So on Facebook, it's important to add your university, school major, courses and graduation date. And if you have any internships or employment, add your volunteer work, your important projects, and make this information public. And always have a presentable profile photo on cover, because those cannot be privated, they're public information. And make any unprofessional content private to only your friends. So your beach pictures, your party pictures, anything that might be controversial, make sure not to have it as on the public set. For Twitter, you also have to add a professional bio and not use vulgar language in your tweets, and try to, as much as possible, interact with companies and professionals on Twitter. If you don't want your employer or the recruiter to match your resume to your Twitter account, either don't have your full name on there, spell it differently, or make your account private. Another good way to get some content about you out there is to create a blog, or try to guest blog if you have any friends with active blogs. Write posts that are relevant to your career, share your opinions about topics in your industry, and then it's very easy. You can just go on blogger.com or wordpress.com. It's free. You can set up your own platform, and if you want to buy a domain, it's only around $10 a year. And then research has shown that applicants with active blogs about the industry that they are in have received $200 more on average on their job offers. So the 6th step is to set up LinkedIn. And by the way, you can do a blog on LinkedIn as well. So if you don't want to invest in a whole new platform, you can try writing articles on LinkedIn. So why should I use LinkedIn? So it's very important to manage your professional profile and brand, to network and meet professionals, share your expertise and knowledge, learn from others, and uncover opportunities. The first thing that people see is your photos, your photo, and that will be the first impression that they will get. So you have to use a professional photo. Here I'm showing you some of the bad examples, and most of them are actually real LinkedIn profile photos I have found throughout the years. So do not use cartoons or a cartoon of yourself. Do not wear your underwear, obviously a bikini. Do not overdress like the lady here in the American top hat costume. Do not crop your face or have it sideways. Do not have a logo instead of your name, and make sure that your face clearly shows. Here are some more bad examples. Do not have your baby or your pet, your dog, your cat, your car in your photo. Do not try to be very artistic. Do not be like this guy and showing money, because that's not a good sign that you're only looking for money. Do not have other people in your profile photo, and do not use memes, and definitely do not put your wedding photo as your LinkedIn avatar. So here are some good examples, usually very straightforward, straight-looking photos of you. If you're conducting a speaking, maybe you can add the logo of your company that you work in next to your photo, like the ones you can see here. Do not have only your logo, because people will not connect with you. Also, try to use timely photos. So no photo of you 29 years ago, 14 years ago. Try as much as possible to use a photo that looks like what you look like now, because if you are doing an online interview and people won't recognize you from your profile photo, they will get confused. Also, it's very important that you fill in your profile as much as you can. Now, this section is a whole course by its own, but I'm going through it quickly. Make sure that your strengths stand out. state your career goals, try to use, showcase your competitive edge, use SlideShare if you want to upload some slides, or Behance for your portfolio, or you can upload a video or articles about you. Use keywords, keyword-rich job titles. So do not make up job titles that are not very clear. So people use the words like social media ninja, or these very weird jobs descriptions that people are coming up with now. And if recruiters do not understand what you do, they are going to get confused and move on to the next person. Optimize your job descriptions as well. So make sure that people know what you did at each job and which achievements that you made. You can write, as we said, in industry-related articles as a blog. You also add connections wisely. Send them a personal message, especially if they're recruiters, and tell them why would you like to connect with them. Do not add everyone, just add people that you know or are in your friend circle, or that you can have a beneficial relationship with them. Make sure your profile is public, definitely on LinkedIn. You don't want to hide your information, because how will people find you? And then you can also translate your profile into languages that you speak. Step 7 is to write a bio. So a bio is a short description on your LinkedIn profile, or you can use it on any other social media platform, or on your CV, or in your emails. And never leave it blank. State your purpose clearly and try to use a third-person perspective. Show them what you've done, not just tell them. So give them examples of how much money you raised for your company, or what are your achievements, or how you resolve the conflict between your team. So try as much as possible to illustrate what have you done, and not just tell them, oh, I was VP of this organization, and that's it. Tailor your keywords specifically to your audience. So if your audience is in a specific country, try to use words that they will understand. And if they're in a specific industry, try to use the words that they use in the industry. Don't use a lot of jargon or words that are very hard to understand. Structure it well, so you can also divide it into paragraphs or bullet points to make it easier to read, and avoid buzzwords and cliches. And now, once you've done all of that, it's time to actually find and apply for a job. And there are a lot of places that you can find jobs, and it's very unfortunate that people do not know about a lot of these places. First of all, on LinkedIn, there's a LinkedIn job section, so it will automatically tailor the jobs to your profile and the skills that you have. Also, you can use the search to look for people, for recruiters, for companies. You can also follow companies and keep checking up on what job posting that they're doing. Join groups on LinkedIn, because there's so many of them in your area and your industry that post jobs. Sometimes they don't post official jobs because that costs money to post, but they post them in groups. And then also look for ads on the sidebars where people are advertising for jobs as well. Other places where you can find job opportunities, search Facebook job groups. There's a lot of them. There's a lot of them in your country, in your city, in your industry. There's a lot of freelancer groups. There's a lot of work from home groups. Also look for recruitment pages. Visit your university's recruitment website or office. So most of your universities will have this to help their alumni get jobs. Look for recruitment agency websites and social media accounts. So there's a lot of recruitment agencies as well that do this. On Twitter, you can follow the hashtag jobs or career with the hashtag of your country or your industry, and you can sometimes find jobs there. There's a lot of job aggregation websites. I will give you some examples. And then also visit recruitment websites of organizations you admire. So if you want to work at Google or Facebook or GE or any multinational, they have a recruitment website. They have all their job posting up there, and you can easily apply for it. So don't forget to put a list of companies that you're interested in working in and go through their recruitment websites. Now, some job boards or job aggregator sites you can think about: Career Builder, Dice, Glassdoor, Google for Jobs, Idealist, Indeed, LinkUp, ZipRecruiter, Monsters, Simply Hired, Graduate Land, mostly is for European jobs. And then you also have to think about the gig economy. So maybe you want to work from home or have a second job, or if you're trying to do a startup but you need some capital, you can do a lot of things that are online, even if you have not studied those. So a lot of times people want writers, people want translators, people want someone to do manual labor, online, just copy paste things or data entry and all of that. And usually they pay a decent amount. So these are some of the websites, and some of them are specialized. Freelancer.com, Fiverr, Upwork, TopTal, People Per Hour, Aquint, Crowded, Next. Writer Access, Guru, Design Hill, FlexJobs, TaskRabbit, Skyward, and also you can think about other, the traditional gig economy jobs, Uber, Careem, Lyft for driving. You can do the food delivery. You can do, all of the delivery things with Amazon. If you're in the US, you can also do that now. So think about this as an alternate mode to get some money, especially in time of crisis. A lot of these services are booming, especially the delivery sector, or the writing, the video production, things you can do at home are booming very well. And then finally, the last step is on how to conduct an online interview. Dress professionally, for sure. And this is something that you can see people talking about. They're only dressing up from the top half and they're not wearing pants. So I don't know how many of you are doing that right now. Also clear your workspace, so you don't have to clean all of your room like this guy. He just clears out where the camera can see. Or you can use a virtual background like I'm doing. And then make sure that you're in a quiet room, no dogs, no pets, no children when you're conducting the job interview. Have your printed resume next to you to refer to, because people will ask you things that you might have forgotten that you put in there. Have a paper and pen next to you to write notes for questions or things that are important, maybe another date for an interview and all of that. And then something that is very a big advantage when you're doing an online interview versus a physical interview is that you can write a script and then you can read it off your laptop without people noticing, or you can practice a lot as well. So this is a very good advantage for you to use. And like Ashleigh was talking about, follow up when you conduct an interview or when you apply to a job. It's very, very important for people to remember you. So either drop an email or call them, send them a card, anything that will make them remember your interview. And you would think that recruiters are not biased or they're very professional, but most of them will hire the people that they remember, even if they're not the best people for the job. So try as much as possible to stand out and follow up and be professional. Definitely do not spam them. So this is what I have for you today. Good luck. And if you have any questions, please leave them on the comments, and hopefully you'll be able to find what you're looking for during this pandemic.
Great, thank you so much for that, VP Mo. That's been really so many practical tips there. I think everyone's taken quite a lot away from that. We now, I'll pass on to JCI Curepipe, Karishma, to do the introduction for Kevin, who is from the Mauritius. Over to you, Karishma.
Hello.
Sorry, over to you, Vedash. My apologies.
Yeah, it's okay. It's okay. Hello, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. Hello, it's from Mauritius or Protocol Reserve. I would like to introduce Mr. Kevin Teramangano. Mr. Kevin has a BSc in Economics, MBA, and MSc in Finance from Leicester University, UK. He worked for KPMG, Deloitte, Ernst & Young in corporate finance and strategic consultancy before moving to Loita Capital Partners Group based in South Africa. He was the co-founder and the CEO of Africa in 2013, which became the premium investor of shopping malls in Africa. He is a frequent writer and speaker at the conference globally and currently serves on the numerous boards of companies in Mauritius, and he also advises a number of companies in Africa, leveraging his 20 years of experience in Africa in financial services, real estate, stability sector. He is also the co-founder of the Curepipe Africa. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everybody. Hi, good to hear a lot of the friends of ours who basically did fantastic presentation. And I was thinking, like, you know, when I started my career more than 20 years ago, I just wish I had so many advice back then. Yeah. So those who are actually listening are very lucky today in 2020 to be able to listen to a lot of people, a lot of experts and professionals in providing all these advice. Yeah, which unfortunately, when I started mine, wasn't the case way back. Yeah. I'm just going to give you a different perspective. I think, you know, you've seen the various presentations, which makes all sense. On my side, I would rather talk to you about what's happening globally, because obviously you're sitting from different parts of the world, etc., and also what you need to expect in terms of the macroeconomy and how that's going to impact on your potential job, on your existing job, or potential job as well going forward. Yep. So in a nutshell, if you look at the current crisis that we are all in, I mean, some of us have been locked down for the last 2 months. Some of us are already out of the lockdown. And if you look at the where we are today, is the economy is the global economy is as bad as potentially as what others have experienced almost sort of 80 years ago in the early 30s. Yeah. So that's the state of the global economy. So we need to be very conscious about that, because if you understand where we are today, people will be more realistic in terms of the type of jobs, but also more realistic in terms of expectations as well, and more realistic in terms of career path as well. Yeah. So if you look at the global economy as we stand, even before the crisis, the global economy over the last couple of years was sort of running out of steam. All the indicators, even pre-COVID crisis, were basically going down. So GDP growth globally was going down. Global debt was increasing forever. Deficits in major economies were increasing. So all the key indicators were basically red. So irrespective of COVID crisis or not, COVID has basically just fast-tracked kind of a reboot or reset of the global economy. So what does it mean today? I'm sure you all tune in, you know, whether it's on webinars, on medias, on telly, etc. You can see, you know, a number of countries are facing bankruptcies at country level. So you might have heard, you know, for example, some of us, I mean, I think on this panel are currently sitting in Lebanon, for example, you know, which is going through a very tough economic crisis. And then at the corporate level, you must have heard as well, you know, a lot of companies are at the brink of bankruptcies, and the usual companies are airlines, tour operators, travel agents. You know, those are the key industries that are currently facing a lot of financial distress. Yeah. So what does it mean? It means basically you will see a lot of governments would have to step in. A lot of governments have already stepped in, by the way. The World Bank and the IMF also are stepping in a big way. So basically putting money and liquidity in the economic engine, basically to make sure that the engine doesn't stall. The biggest fear today is that the economy stalls. You know, if we get to that point, then it's going to be a complete disaster, and hopefully we're not going to get there. So that's why you will see a lot of governments would be injecting money. I mean, to pay, we're all going to pay, by the way, whether it takes 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, 40 years, or 50 years, we're going to be paying for what's currently happening. Yeah. So we'll have to live with it. So what does it mean? It means, I think Ashleigh probably sort of summed it up pretty well. You know, the market out there is, there's going to be an oversupply of labor in the market in different countries, oversupply in lots of traditional sectors. So the traditional sectors would be travel, tourism, you know, your sort of old, what I call the old pillars, basically, you know, manufacturing, et cetera, et cetera. Having said that, you will see, for example, there are the new pillars that would require people and that are currently struggling to get people. When I say people, not only just people for the sake of people, but qualified people and people who've got the willingness to actually be productive. You know, that's the thing, is how do you become more productive than you know, another 500 people who've applied for the same job, etc. So I think what it means is, my sort of back of the envelope, we're going to have in a scenario where you get oversupply of labor or oversupply of people looking for jobs globally, So what's going to happen is employers are going to have a choice of, it's a matter of demand supply. So we'll see salaries and wages going down. That's already happening in a lot of jobs already. Sacrifices are being asked already. Companies are asking people either they go on technical unemployment or people basically go on reducing their salaries. So in that environment, we have to be realistic. And here, I just want to share my own experience here. Many, many years ago, by the way, when I started my career, my first job, which was probably when a lot of you were not even born, it looked like. That was 98, by the way, so a long time ago. So I came back from the UK, had my degree and 2 masters, and it was very difficult to find a job, because you were competing against many people. So what I did then, the tip I can provide to you is, my first job, I went to the employer that I wanted to, which was at the time KPMG. I went to meet up with the senior partner and asked him for 5 minutes. And in that 5 minutes, basically, I brokered a deal with him, was basically to give me a job for 3 months, no salaries, just pay for my transport. Yeah. And after 1 month, he basically offered me a contract with a salary. Yeah. So the mindset here is, and I think somebody else mentioned that before, intrapreneur and entrepreneur. Yeah. Over the years and over the decades, in the private sector, a lot of corporates, a lot of companies have produced literally civil servants in the private sector. Yeah. So we expect a job, we expect a bonus at the end of the year, we expect an increase of salaries, we expect a career promotion, et cetera, et cetera. Today, we are in a new era, whether we like it or not. We're talking about Industry 4.0, we're talking about Industry 5.0. So you need to make a choice. The great thing about most of you, you are young. You were born for Industry 4.0 and 5.0. The people like myself, for example, which by the way, I retired 3 years ago, but a lot of my friends at my age, which are basically in the 40s who are currently still working, it's gonna be hard because A, they need to keep their employment, B, they need to upskill, and C, they might even do some kind of transition from one sector to a different sector, learning totally new. Whereas most of you on this call are young, so you've got the energy. So my recommendation to you would be, feel what your heart, what you like to do, and you go for it. Don't stick in with, a couple of months ago, the salary benchmark was X dollar or X rupees or X euro per month, whatever, and that's what you need to get. Today, it's about experience. It's about demonstrating that you can actually deliver, rather than being at the job from 8 to 5, that basically you can deliver and you can even over deliver. And that's what employers are looking for. I sit, as a retired person, I sit on as a board member of quite a number of companies as non-exec board member. So today, I sit also on a number of remuneration governance committees, etc. So today, if I have a choice of people, I would choose the one who's more entrepreneur, the one that's willing to demonstrate he or she can actually do more than anybody else, and more importantly, that's willing to go the extra mile. So you are young, you've got the energy, and going the extra mile should not even be something difficult for you. It should be actually very easy, and you've got it, yeah. So my recommendation to you is don't give up. There's a new world opening up. I'm seeing most of my friends who are currently involved in one way or the other within Industry 4.0 and 5.0 are not asking for bailout money from governments, by the way. They're actually having thriving businesses as we speak. So if you are currently sitting in a company that's been evolving in Industry 3.0, even your company will be impacted and will be transformed over the next 6 months to a year. So keep an open mind, keep positive, and everything will be fine. And the future is yours, by the way. So I'm looking forward to that. Yeah, I'll stop here.
Thank you so much, Kevin. I think that's such an interesting perspective to bring, and bringing it all together from a really holistic, systemic view of what's happening in the economy. I'm sure the viewers have found it, the audience has found it really valuable. What we will do now is go into some Q&A roundtable with yourself, Kevin, and Mo. If there are any questions, we've got one question here around from Farhat, and he's asking to you, Kevin, what are the most demanded job vacancies in the market right now?
So I think I'm seeing. Okay, I'm not an HR specialist or a talent recruiter, etc. So I think others can give more sort of more detail. But from what I'm seeing, speaking to friends who are currently running businesses, etc., a lot of my friends who are CEOs of companies involved in Industry 4.0 and 5.0 are struggling to get simple stuff. Data analysts, for example, are struggling to get basically people who can help everything to do with technology. So we're seeing more and more for that. So for example, which by the way, I'm currently in South Africa as we speak, friends of mine who are in technology, and technology is impacting all the economic pillars basically. So today we're talking about agrotech, edutech, health tech, prop tech, property tech, you name it, yeah. So today we basically need people who are technology savvy to come in the forefront. Very often back in the days, the last 20 years, my experience has been, when you talk about tech, it's typically an IT guy in the basement, but today I think you're gonna find techie guys driving a lot of businesses. So we need techie guys not only to be techie, but they need also to be strategic. So those who can bundle those two together will have an edge basically, and will be able to go up the C ladder very, very quickly, or much quicker than others, yeah.
Yeah, no, that's a great point about bringing those soft skills together. Mo, do you want to jump in there?
Sure. I agree that a lot of the tech jobs are really in high demand right now. And if you think about also in the world of business, the marketing domain is very, very hot. It's been for a few years. Because at this point, everyone's moving from traditional advertising. So from TV ads, they're moving from billboards, they're moving from magazines and newspapers to digital because it's so much cheaper to do and so much more effective. So people who have the skills in doing digital marketing in terms of video production, in terms of copywriting, buying the ads, in terms of managing the communities, it's very hot, and everything that has to do with digital design, app development. Every company, every restaurant out there wants to make their own app, and they want to make the move into digital. So it's in very high demand, and I would imagine it will stay in high demand for a few years, as you not only need to create these platforms, but you need to maintain them. And especially now that people are locked at home and everything can be done on their laptops. So this is a very good time to invest in this domain. I also see that some of the domains that will be facing an economic downturn are especially the services industry, where you need to be in contact with people. So tourism is definitely taking a massive hit. The airlines industry, the cruise industry. There's also a service industry like hospitality, restaurants, hotels. Anything that has to do with engaging with people will take a hit. So if you are in that industry, try as much as possible to pivot into something else before you lose your job. A lot of these people have been laid off, definitely. More industries that are doing very well right now. Production in terms of farming, because people are at home and they need food. They're less reliant on restaurants and more reliant on buying and cooking at home. So also, if you want to create startups related to help people manage their mental health, manage their skills at home, how to cook, because a lot of people didn't know how to cook before the pandemic, and they're starting to learn now. So anything related to that, I see a lot of startups popping up where they send you a box with all the ingredients measured out and cleaned, and you only need to do the cooking. And that's happening in a lot of countries. So anything that you can do to help people during the pandemic is hopefully going to pick up. we do have 1 or 2 years where we will be facing this pandemic. So it's not something that's going to end this summer. So you have time to come up with ideas or join companies that are trying to solve problems related to the pandemic. If you are in the medical field, definitely the biggest issue right now is finding a vaccine or a cure, but also trying to find, to create research to know more about the coronavirus. So there are a lot of opportunities in a lot of fields. Entertainment field is very booming. The biggest company that is or the company that made the biggest profits during this pandemic is Netflix, because they are providing a service that everyone is using, and they predict that their profit will go down after the pandemic. So if you are in a position to create shows or video content on YouTube for Netflix, for any other streaming service, it is the time to do it. Netflix and other streaming services are investing a lot in this time because they've made so much more money than they expected. So if you are talented in that regard, make sure that you try as much as possible to do that. There's a lot of YouTube creators who are making millions of dollars just by creating shows on their own, with one camera, with a phone microphone, with something very simple. So you don't need to leave your house to make money during this time.
Great point. Thank you so much, Mo. Saleh would also like to add a tip around the future of jobs that we've touched on. Go ahead, Saleh.
Yes, thank you so much. I just want to present 3 things very fast about the future skills and the future job. As speakers mentioned, and this is small tips that in 2015 and how it will be in 2020, we can see that it is more about soft skills that are being more essential skills, like being agile, being more digitalized. Like this, they are talking about future communication, digital awareness, agile entrepreneurial thinking, data-driven decision-making, human-centered designs. Those are the skills that all corporates now are focused on. And I guess all of you saw this article when it was published from the World Economic Forum, the 10 emerging needed jobs now, which is, as the previous speakers mentioned, it's not the normal guy. So data analyst are in need, AI, general operation managers, softwares, big data, new technology. What I wanted to say that doesn't mean that pharmacists like me or a doctor or a teacher, they will lose their job. The traditional ones, they will lose their jobs. But if you are a doctor, you need to know something about the AI and the digital transformation and how you can put it together. So the job will be for you, not for the IT guys, because they need the medical background of you. They need the pharmaceutical background, the teaching background for you. But the thing now is you don't need, the future is not one skill. You should be a hybrid, skillful person. Thank you.
Thank you so much. That's really valuable.
Can I just add on that? Yeah, because obviously I think all the 3 of us, and even before that as well, we talked a lot about technology and all these new skills, and that's going to be required as well. If you think about where the world is moving as well, where today we're totally connected, you know, some of us who were born pre-connectivity, for example, would probably remember what it used to be back in whatever, the 70s or 60s or 80s or whatever. And those who were born in the era of internet would not know potentially what it was back then. Yeah? So I think in that generation, I think also in this world of connectivity where we're connected every single day, and also given the economic damage globally, a lot of people are going to be coming out of this as well, scarred, mentally scarred. So anything around wellness also is going to have an opportunity, because you will have a growing market for people who would like to disconnect from whatever they do on an everyday basis. So for example, your tourism, you know, you might have a growing market for people who would move away from sand, sea and sun to something to wellness tourism, etc. So I see another opportunity there basically, which is around wellness, mental wellness, you know, taking care of your body, etc. You know, even adding spirituality as well to it. Yeah. So that's a growing thing as well in parallel for maybe older people, but even younger people who might want to explore something totally new and disconnect from from the iPhones and whatever that remains with us almost 24 hours, 365 days a year.
Thank you, Kevin. Before, I know we're fast running out of time, and I wanted to give the opportunity for all the speakers to say some closing remarks. But I wanted to ask you a little bit more, Kevin. You spoke about Industry 5.0 and how that's being quite transformative and what age we're in. What do you think are kind of, I suppose, tips for the generation that is going through the pandemic and losing jobs? What do you think are some tips to kind of capitalize on Industry 5.0? We've had someone ask whether they need to go back and do further study, whether that would be useful, or what is your perspective on that?
Well, on the positive side, if you look at obviously we've talked about that global economy is going to take a lot of time to get back, to what it used to be, and for people to get sort of sensible jobs, etc. But the next couple of years, I don't see it just a matter of months. It's going to be at least a good 2-3 years, if not more, for things to be back to whatever the normal is. The positive side of it, despite the crisis, is we experience something which is between the recession and the depression. And at least we're not back in the days of the 30s, because most of the people who live in the 30s and the 40s were at war. So when you look at us around us, we don't have any war happening. We don't have any destruction of buildings, etc. So at least we don't have to reconstruct countries from that basis. So my message to the generation of today is, we're going to come out of it. So all we need to do is, over the next 2 to 3 years, be realistic. And I've said this before, so realistic means, if, for example, you've been asked to reduce your salary, do it. At least you get a job and you remain in the job and you get more experience. If you can afford it, to basically apply for a job and ask for experience as well, do it in these tough times, because you're competing against zillions of people. So you just need to grab the job, unless you've got, your parents or whoever are paying your rent, etc. Then it's a different scenario. But if it's not, so my advice would be, the next couple of years going to be years of sacrifices, basically. And a lot of us, for the last 20, 30 years, we probably don't know what sacrifices are, because we've never gone into a deep recession. Okay, we've had 2008, etc. But we haven't globally. We've had, crisis in Greece, for example. If you speak to my Greek friends, they'll tell you, hey, they went through amazing problems post 2008, but globally it never happened over the last 20 years. So in that, I think my tip would be realistic, be positive, be always willing to do things, and just go over the mile. And then if you can retrain and retool, just do it. There are lots of things that can be done. We've done it. I mean, think about it. Imagine hundreds of years ago, there were people who had the same discussion when we had Industry 1.0, and they had to go from 1.0 to 2.0, and from 2.0 to 3.0, and we're going for 4.0 and 5.0. So we've got all the tools, all the experts around us, which most of us didn't have hundreds of years ago, or even when I started my career. So it's all in the mental. For me, it's all in the mind, So if you're able to reboot your mind, you will be fine,
Thank you so much, Kevin. And that's really, really valuable. It's quite interesting. I work in restructuring and insolvency here in New Zealand. So we've been dealing with a lot of people who are losing their jobs after so many years in one industry. So it's quite a really great tips there about being realistic and also being able to retool. And I think we've heard from all the speakers that agility and adaptability. We've got about 7 minutes left of our webinar, and I just wanted to take a couple of minutes here from each speaker and invite each speaker to share, 1 or 2 kind of key messages that they want to leave the audience with. And also, if you want to share any opportunities with the audience that you'd like to invite them to either connect with you or anything like that. I'll start with our first speaker, Eomal.
Thanks, Noreen. So actually shared a couple of LinkedIn posts on this chat, so feel free to please have a look at those. Feel free to share it with others as well. And I think I endorse what Kevin said in terms of what will get us through this crisis, and that's mindset. If we have that positive mindset, be optimistic, we can get through this. And I'd like to leave with one last example. Anyone here who had ordered from Boober Eats? Can you raise your hands? Boober Eats, not Uber Eats, Boober Eats. Okay, so Boober Eats is a company that's in Portland. It was a strip club. And when the bars were closed during quarantine, what the strippers did was, look, they needed to survive. They decided to deliver the food. The bar kitchen made the food, and the strippers went in their usual attire and delivered food. And just imagine the demand for that company, right? Boober Eats, fancy name as well, right? So if you reinvent yourself, the limits are, it's limitless. You're only limited by the limits of your imagination. So reinvent yourself and we can rise together. That will be my final remark.
Wonderful. Thank you, Eomal. That is not what I expected, but thank you. That's a great message about reinventing yourself. Over to you, Ashleigh.
That really caught me by surprise. I think Kevin really summed it up so well, and I found myself sitting here going, yeah, so that really resonated with me. Be positive, be willing to do more than what you normally would, be persistent. At the moment, you might need to try more than one communication tool to get in contact with the person that you need to. And this might be too idealistic for me, given that we're faring fairly well here in Brisbane, but I'd say one of the key things that I always look for and that really just cuts through with candidates looking for me is somebody that can communicate their why. So whether that's their why over the phone or on their LinkedIn profile or in a covering letter that explains their situation and their personal motivation or resonates with the values or something like that, even beyond this pandemic, that's the number one thing that I would say to people out in the market at the moment is do your best to communicate that, because that's what will make you an engaged employee and hopefully what employers will see in an application from you. So if anybody wants to connect with me on LinkedIn, please feel free to do so, and I'm happy to answer any other questions that they might have at another time.
Thank you so much, Ashleigh. That's a great tip around communicating your why. Saleh, over to you for a few final messages.
Thank you so much. I loved the speech of Kevin and all of the speakers, definitely, and the example from Eomal. That was really astonishing. Okay. Final tips is that I agree with all the speakers. It's a positive mindset, because in the entrepreneurship world, this is the what summarizes everything. If you are an entrepreneur, this crisis is everywhere. So it means that you will open your startup and it might fail after 1 year or 2 years, and it might be booming after. And the most important example is Zoom, from 10 million participant to 350 million participant because of the crisis. So you can't imagine anything. So I can just tell you that you need to be always updated with your knowledge, with your skills. Let's be realistic, it's very hard time. You need to do financial management for yourself, guys, now. Don't buy new cars, don't go for trips that are too much fancy with too much costs. Do trips with your family, okay, and that's good. But try, it's now, as Mr. Kevin mentioned, this is not only for months. This might be for years, but also look at the green side of it. Opportunities are always there. Grab the opportunities and always be updated.
Thank you.
And for the question that asked me about the presentation, I will share you the link of my LinkedIn, and I will put the presentation there also, so you can access it. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much. Mo, any final comments and thoughts?
Of course. First, I'd like to announce that I shared the slides in the chat. So if anyone wants to get my slides, their link is already there. In terms of my final remarks, I'd like to thank everyone for being here, for attending with us today. I'd like to thank the speakers and the moderator and the host of this event. I learned a lot from all the other speakers. My main takeaway point is similar to what VP Saleh said. The most important thing right now is for us to adapt and to learn new skills. We have to be agile in this time because the jobs are very limited, and in order for us to stand out, we have to invest in ourselves to learn new skills. And it had never been cheaper to learn skills. Everyone is providing courses that are free or very discounted that you can do things. It's not just important that we graduate from a university, because I graduated 10 years ago and most of the things I learned do not apply anymore. So it's about increasing our knowledge about our industry or the world around us, and increasing the skills. And it's very easy to learn a new language if we put our mind to it, or a new skill, or how to code an app, or there are so many resources. We've never been in a time where we have so much educational and knowledge resources that we can use in one click. And yet we see a lot of people that are not using this time to be effective or to learn new things. And I get that some people are very demotivated. They might not have, they're not food secure, and they are not in a mood to do that. But once we train ourselves slowly, learn one new thing a day, read books. There's a great app that I use called Blinkist, where they give you the key points of the most popular books in 12 to 18 minutes. And I usually do this, use it to learn, new ideas or think about new things when I'm doing the dishes or cleaning my house or doing chores or something like that. I'm using it to be more productive. And in a month, I've read more than 40 books on the app, or I've listened to the key points of more than 40 books. So there's a lot of things you can do. Start with small things that you don't need a lot of investment in, and then slowly you will be able to get more motivated to either create a new business or learn new skills or find a new job during this time. So that's my main takeaway is adapt and learn. Thank you.
Great, thank you so much for that tip, and adapt and learn. VP Mo, thank you so much. Kevin, any last thoughts and takeaways for the audience?
Well, I think they've covered pretty much all. All I can say is just keep positive. And if ever you're down, think about it. We're not at war. You're still alive. Just go out, look at the sky, breathe, and we'll be fine. We'll come out of it. Just stay positive.
Great, and that's such a great note to end on. Thank you, Kevin. I just want to take this opportunity to thank all 5 speakers. They've come to the career and immersive career during and post-pandemic from very different perspectives, but you can see that they're all really driving some really key points together. And so I hope that everyone's taken away a lot from each of those speakers. I certainly have. They have all also been really quite generous in offering their slides, offering to connect on LinkedIn. So do take those opportunities. As Ashleigh said earlier, be proactive. We've heard that. So do take this opportunity to learn and connect. Big thank you for those speakers for their generosity, for sharing this evening from all different time zones. Thank you so much, Eomal, Ashleigh, Saleh, VP Saleh, VP Mo, and Kevin. Thank you so much. Really, really awesome insights there. I also wanted to take a minute to thank each of the chapters that have hosted these speakers and come to collaborate on this event. It's really great to be collaborating on this global platform. So thank you to all the chapters that have come on board. A big thank you to the organising team and Anas, who's kept us all on task. So thank you so much. I'll hand over to Anas quickly before we close off, just to share the upcoming webinar details, and then we will close off. But thanks all. Over to you, Anas.
Hi. Thanks, Lorraine. I think our next session will be next Saturday, 6 June, about personal branding and development. So we have 5 countries again. It will be a Penta-Nation webinar. Sri Lanka, Bangladesh, Japan, Jordan, and Australia will be joining from speakers. So we welcome all of you to join the next webinar. Already the event page is published, and you can register yourself to join the webinar. Thank you very much, all of you joining this.
Thanks all, and good night from New Zealand, and hope you have a good evening, good morning, or a good day. See you next time.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you.